All right. How do we paint in the style of Valorant? Overall, it's fairly simple. Not easy, but fairly simple. Again, I want to stress that you do need a good set of fundamentals in order to tackle something like this successfully. But today I'm going to give you some pointers on what you can do in order to get to that style. Now, there's two things that you need to remember about this style. One, it's graphic, and two, it's colorful. And three, it's ripped off from Leyendecker, okay? Like most styles, a lot of this is based on Leyendecker. Anyway, the thing you would need to get to this style is one, of course, a very graphic silhouette, and two, a colorful background. Now, what you'll see that happens a lot, and I'm going to do most of this actually with the lasso tool, is first we're just going to block in the colors of what we want things to look like. So I'm just going to first color block in everything the way I think it should be color blocked in. So that means that for the jacket, I have basically two things for the jacket. I have the main jacket, and then I have a shirt underneath. And again, I'm treating this very graphically. It's basically what you should do in order to achieve this style. So we can get like any type of color basically. Let's do something like this. All right. Then we're going to block in the shirt. And I'm just going to keep that fairly white for now. Like that. And then usually we'd also probably have some armor here and there. I'm not going to paint that in for this one, but I just want to give you a little bit of an indication of how you could achieve this style. So when it comes to the rendering part itself, what you basically do is you have the same sort of setup. You have a key light, which is, I think in this case, again, it's also a colder light. So we have a light coming from any direction you basically choose. And then we will have a warmer rim light. Again, sort of silhouetting that character, right? That's basically, you will see this a lot in many, many, many different render styles, especially modern ones. And when it comes to the shapes itself, everything is super graphic. So both the external shapes are very graphic. You know, they are very triangular and exaggerated, or they're like this. And so it's almost like a line of beauty, big, medium, small. All of this is important when you design these outer shapes, even when it comes to the hair and everything. And the internal shapes are going to be exactly the same. So when it comes to treating these internal shapes, when it comes to shading, the shadow map, the highlights, all of that, you're going to see a lot of those graphic shapes as well. And these are really, really based on Leyendecker. There's nothing more that I can tell you. If you want to learn to sort of come up with your own unique style, but still keep it graphic, just learn from Leyendecker because he's the master. What you will also see, and I'll quickly do this in a little bit of a call out, is that we will have I will do it on a sphere. We will have a form with a certain color, can be any color, and it will have a super clear shadow, like this, very graphic. But then the highlights, or the area in highlight, will have a lot of hue variation. So a lot of hue shifts to actually make this entire thing interesting, right? And that's how you sort of get to this Valorant style. So this is just the color treatment. It's not about the graphic treatment, but of course that is part of it as well. But you still want to make the form read overall, so you'll have to keep your form intact. But overall, you will see that this is sort of the graphic treatment that they're trying to give it, with very graphic treatments. And the way to achieve that, of course, is to know, well, first know your fundamentals and know good design, right? So that's basically how you can achieve sort of this look. And based on that, once you can distill fundamentals from basically any style, that's where the power of being an artist comes in. That's where you start understanding things fundamentally. So you need to learn the fundamentals. You don't need to be too worried about copying styles, because that will get you only so far. You need to just be able to understand people's style, understand what they're thinking, how they operate. And that's something you can only learn from knowing the fundamentals. That's why we hammer them so much at Artwod, because fundamentals will carry you through anything. Like tools, cool tools, they come and go, but fundamentals, they're here forever. So that's what you wanna aim to understand. Okay, so once we have a shadow map, what we're now gonna do, instead of jumping in to halftones and highlights, because that's what a lot of you always tend to do, we're first gonna look at ambient occlusion. So we're gonna look at some darker values, and we're gonna use those to indicate where the light will have the hardest time reaching. And again, what we can do here is we can create like interesting triangular shapes to make everything read a little bit better. Now, what they're doing really well in this style, which I really like, is that they're really using a lot of fundamental techniques and inking techniques that sort of rely on creating, core shadow indication and creating good bounce light indication. And that's a little bit of an inking technique where you start hatching, and because you only have black essentially, which you can see like here, but you leave some of that on both ends of the silhouette open so that it suggests a kind of a bounce light. So it's a really clever way of suggesting form. All right, now here comes the interesting part, and here's what I really like about a style like this, or like lots of similar styles in general, is instead of using only this one flat color, what we're now doing is we're taking that color and we're creating interesting internal shapes. And I'm going to just do that with a complete opaque brush, but you can do it with the lasso tool as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick this color, and within that range of hues, I'm gonna add some interest to this color. But I'm not going to stray away too much from the local value. That's important. You don't want to stray away from the local value. You just want to keep that as much as you can. So, I might do something this, and I'm just gonna try and utilize the colors I pick as best as I can, but I can do it a little randomly if I want to. So now let's move on to highlights, right? So I'm gonna use a different layer. Normally I wouldn't do that, but for this sort of specific case, I am gonna do it. So if we want to create some highlights, what we need to do is we need to think about the color of the highlight. In this case, the key light would be cooler, and then the rim light is going to be a lot warmer. So you're going to see that when we add the rim light, it's going to make a little bit more sense. But based on my local color, I'm now going to cool off those colors a little bit and start adding in some of those highlights to make everything pop. And again, of course, this should be based on the form. Form is key. Form and structure. So if you have a hard time with that concept, then you should check out Artwod. All right, everyone, that's how far I will take it for this one. So remember, if you want to get to this style, what you basically need to remember is, one, you need very graphic shapes, a very clear silhouette. Two, you need graphic internal shapes, such as the shadows, the ambient occlusion, and then your local color needs to have a lot of color dynamics. So there needs to be a lot of color interest in the highlight areas, so you create a lot of color variety with really sharp, well-defined edges. And if you want to know more about that, just check out, learn from Leyendecker, guys like Leyendecker. I have a classroom on this called Shape Design in Painting. It's exclusive for pro members, but you can definitely check it out. And it's basically what you need to know in order to achieve a similar style to this. It's learning how to well define your shapes. So I hope you have fun with this. It's a really fun topic to tackle. Again, learn those fundamentals first and then have fun with them. Okay? See you later.